anything on. I didn't start streaming.
I thought you guys.
All right, give it a second. I just hit go live.
That's fine.
My reader packet's on my desk.
I got mine if you
I
need
say
it.
it's in your bag.
Yeah.
It's a women roll.
Right.
So I'm constantly, especially with the younger guys at work,
You know, Don, that
when I
doesn't
have
help.
What's that?
That doesn't help.
What's that?
But we're trying to talk her into staying and not take that other than, hey, Angela, that's.
And you're yelling at
Well,
him.
no, I see why she's.
Despite my interesting evening yesterday leaving work, today was all good, so.
Yeah, tiptoe. I'm tiptoe.
more comfortable seeing stuff. You know, absolutely. Like I said, that's just me, but
No, and that's how women are.
Yeah.
All your
Should be
ID,
good.
everything.
I didn't get anybody.
We are
to walk.
on, we are
If anybody
live,
wants
just
to
everybody
grab
know.
water, they can.
I
I'm
think
good.
we got, yeah, everybody's got.
We're good.
Okay. Why do you
I got
Mary? You good?
I'm good, thank you.
You got our curtain warmers. You got our curtain warmers.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Did you start the stream, Angela?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I know you had.
Well, we were talking about just moving it up there, because then it can capture everything. It would be a different type of camera, and it would capture everything, but, or he could move it up more.
You have a different lens on it?
But, because we're, I mean, I don't know if we're ever gonna get that back row, but,
You probably wouldn't get all of that anyway.
I mean, we can see who's coming in, so that is kind of good.
So,
Yeah, remember the touch screen every time.
I did have Jenna Lee is
Okay.
recording it in the police department too, just in case. So it's just worth having her record it just in case we have a problem. Or if somebody wants to come and get it, I guess it's not a bad thing. I mean, if they don't, some people might not have, they have a DVD player, but maybe not the internet, you know?
Right.
You know, at least they'd be able to get a copy of it if they want it.
Okay. Now we're ready.
I'm ready. Johnny, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Counsel ready?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just before we start, if I could remind everybody, please speak into the microphones as much as possible. It just picks up better.
I told everybody earlier it would be kind of long-winded tonight. Not really. Okay, see, look at that. Okay, here we go.
Some of us have already put
Oh, I
in
don't
a
want
full
this.
day.
Okay, here we
Mayor.
go. I know. Well, I have two. Believe me.
Just giving you crap.
I know. Okay. I know you are. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 at 6:04 PM. Can we have roll call, please?
Yep, Councilman Nielsen.
Here.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Here.
Councilwoman Allen.
Here.
Councilman Whedon.
Present.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Here.
All of council present, along with our fiscal officer Angela Reve and our law solicitor John Montello. Like to also welcome any residents or non-residents that are watching our live stream. Okay. Any comments related to the agenda items, which we just have one piece of legislation on here to talk about. We're going to have Rita discussion again. We did have two representatives here last week from Rita to go over the services they offer. Right now, we collect our own taxes. If we were to switch to Rita, we would be paying Rita to do that service for us. Any comments from anybody watching the live stream?
Not yet, you'll have to give it a minute.
Okay. With that said, I know we did receive a packet. I thought we had a pretty a good informational meeting, a good presentation from the Rita representatives. I know this isn't something that just is coming about, at least from the office here, because of the transition with our Angela Reve, our present fiscal officer, but also it's something we've been talking about for a while yet. And the more I thought about it from my position, with, the increase in employees, which we're all hoping for, with some of our economic development and some of the things they offer to make sure we get all those taxes of any new employees that are working in our community. I think that was kind of music to my ears, that they would actually go after them, and in a good way. When I say go after, it's not like anyone's trying to not pay, it's just that they might not know that they need to. So because that was something, I was on council when we switched and we started collecting them ourselves, and at that time we felt it was to our advantage to have it in-house. And now I know myself, I feel different, and a lot of the communities around us are going in that direction. Even our former fiscal officer, 2 former fiscal officers, our present fiscal officer, are leading their communities in that direction too. So, any questions come up? Why?
Not on the live stream.
Okay. So we can have some open discussion. Any questions, do that. I know Angela does have.
Yeah, so if I can start, one piece, that's just, it's not gonna matter in the extraction of files at this time. Everything can still be moved over to Rita, but one thing I didn't consider, and in talking to Tom Jordan today, and John spoke to Matt, and I spoke to Dawn, our JED agreement itself states that we will collect their taxes. So we can move forward with our piece, and then when we have our annual JED meeting in December, what's gonna happen is we're gonna have, I'm gonna send that JED agreement over to Rita. They're going to just draft a separate proposal for the JED. So it's not that it's gonna be any more incurred cost for us, but it will remain separate so that in December, when we do our JED meeting, we can pass legislation within the JED to authorize Rita to collect on behalf of the JED. So at the current time, we've got one large JED client, one that we used to have dropped off in 2021. They had no more business here. They moved their operations. And we've got 2 very smaller mom and pop clients. So we're not talking a lot. I don't see it being an issue. If for any reason it would be, the worst that's going to happen is we're going to still take 1 check or 2 checks, it'll be two checks a month, because they're 2 separate ones from the one facility. And maybe here and there a couple extra. And then again, we're already going to be distributing to our general fund and cutting the check back to Sagamore. So that wasn't going to change regardless. So at the very least, if someone's questioning it on the JED end, we're just going to keep taking those couple checks in-house. We're not changing their fee structure. We're not increasing their 3% administrative cost. That cost originally was set based on what they thought Rita would charge when they set up that cost with the JED back in the day. So nothing's going to change. So I don't see it being an issue to pass that legislation within the JED meeting in December. But so just so you have that in the back of your mind. But again, when they do the extracts, they'll just have that client information, and we'll, if for some reason something goes and needs to go longer with the JED or have a second meeting with the JED, we would just continue to collect those couple checks here. Any questions about that piece?
That was one of the only things from the time we met that we've had discussion on. So but Angela, you clarified that perfect for me. Good. And I know you talked to Tom today.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I really don't have any questions. I'm glad Angela addressed that. I will be the first to say that originally when we switched, I was not on council at the time. I was glad because we had a lot of problems. I was having problems with Rita to get it straight. But I cannot tell you how impressed I was by their presentation and the services they now offer that I don't think we're ever going to be able to get from an individual tax collector here or tax person. I mean, they have a call center, a customer service, I mean, a page and page and page of everything that is included in their fee. They have a professional tax software. They have portals that they can get into that we ourselves can't get into. I'm looking again for the price they estimated and quoted us, which would be comparable to hiring another employee. And then with hiring another employee, you have the cost of healthcare if they're full-time. So we are actually paying more. We have to then go and try and find another employee. They also do the collections, and they will send people to the businesses, and it takes the bad guys out of the village hall to collect the taxes. We've got Rita after them instead. I think this is the best route to go for the cost presented to us and for the residents. There are many, many different, services that, to the residents, even how they can file it, not only e-pay, but you can even do manual forms, you can go there. I mean, I think it's the best bang for our buck right now, for the village, and with the corner growing, they're gonna have the staff that's gonna be able to help with all the different employees' taxes coming in. That is my take on it, so I'm ready to vote yes.
One other thing I like for your village in particular is that we still can dictate, do we want to charge penalties and interest? Do we want to keep it a little more personal? I know last week they talked about judgments, but right now, as I'm aware, that would maybe pertain to some businesses. We don't have any residents here that we probably say, oh my gosh, you're so behind, we need a judgment for you. So while those things are out there, we can still say, here's how personal we want to keep it. And yes, you're going to get some W-2s in the mail, and you may need to call these residents because they leave notes, and that's perfectly fine. So I mean, I like that we still have that ability to add our personal touch of Walton Hills, and it's not just gonna go commercial and they're never gonna be able to talk to us again in-house, or they're never gonna feel like they're, being heard, for those residents that might be older and might not wanna file online or get online and do their stuff. So that piece is nice for me, but really, really key is them having access to the state and federal databases and being able to, tap into lottery winnings and things like that, and work with other state organizations if they need to hone in, or like we said, if somebody forgot to file a Schedule C with me, be it on purpose or not, or inadvertently, and I don't know that they started a business out of their home or that they have some other side business or rentals, Rita's going to be able to capture that. Where here, even with Vic and I both here, I don't know that there was time for us to dig behind the scenes on all of that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say for the good that they've come around. Vic and I had extensive conversations when I started here about why we pulled from Rita before, and their software was subpar, and they were missing clients, and they were just playing catch up on a lot of things themselves. So they have come beyond full circle in their systems and their staff and their abilities to service. Obviously, you see how many cities are part of Rita, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Specific.
Mr. Mayor, I agree 100% with Mary and with Angela. I was on council, and you were on council also at the time when we did go to Rita, and we had multiple meetings on that transition. Move away from Rita. And we had many meetings on that. Rita at the time was very subpar, not user-friendly. And there were many reasons why we transitioned. I think the time is right to transition back. Even if we weren't going to transition, we would have to hire another person, as Mary said, to do all that work. And that's going to cost us the same amount, if not more, by the time we get done paying benefits for that person. And Rita, when I first heard about this transition back, what came to my mind for our residents was how user-friendly is this thing going to be? Because I didn't want, 30% of our residents are seniors. Not that they file, if they're under a certain income, they don't even have to file, right? But even if you're not a senior, I don't want one of our residents sitting on hold for 2 hours and then hanging up the phone because they can't get somebody because they have a question. And the package that was delivered to us last week and the presentation, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So you can even drive up to Brecksville and go in. And if you want to, rather than calling. So I think reading all of these things, reading what they can do now as opposed to what they could not do years ago, I think it's going to be a lot more user-friendly system for our residents. That's the main point for me. And I also think that, yes, we will probably capture more income That's not the primary reason why I'm for this. I'm going to vote yes for this. I think it's the right thing to do for our residents at this time. And as that corner develops and other properties in the industrial area develop, we have other areas that are developing other than that. They will go and introduce themselves and find out what's happening there and capture that income for us. So we can start doing more things for our residents as far as roads, things like that. So I think it's at this point, it's a win-win situation. I think we would be going backwards if we were to say, if I were to vote no on this and this were not to go through and just to hire somebody, it would just be an inadequate operation.
And you're gonna want a person and a half at least,
Yes.
not even just one person, right? Because your tax administrator, much like your fiscal officer, should be overseeing those bigger pieces like collections and things. So when I got here and I was entering and I was the auditor, and I'm not gonna say I know what Vic was or wasn't doing throughout the day because he was training me as well, but like Vic's piece of it should have been tackling the bigger fish and tackling the businesses and things like that, or anybody who was behind or had questions about their net operating loss schedule. So you're still gonna have some, whoever the admin is may need to also be full-time to split between the fiscal officer and the tax administrator if they've got some tax experience so that they can do the data entry piece of it. Like I've got Mary doing some basic data entry now. Nancy knows how as well, and I think Lisa knows how. That could probably, on some of what I've got Mary doing, I could train them on the rest. So that piece isn't too difficult, but you would be taking some more resources. And then once you look at a full-time assistant, again, there's some more benefits there too. So, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Jen.
First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for having this meeting this week. Last week, I was a little overwhelmed with just getting all the information and trying to digest it and stuff. So I appreciate everybody taking the time so we can have this extra meeting. I do agree with what everyone has said. I think the additional services that they have, I think that if we didn't, I quite honestly think we would have to have at least 2 people that would have to be hired. And that would definitely increase the cost compared to what Rita is. And I really don't see it as an increased cost to us because they're taking it from what they're collecting. So I don't see it really as anything coming out of our pocket. It helps with the, OPERS
Trim a
and
little bit, we'll trim a little bit off.
healthcare and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So having the extra time to go through this, seeing that it's only going to cost us 1.5 to maybe 1.7% of the collections, I'm good with it. Everything that they've done, I've talked to people in other communities, council members that are with Rita. They are all very happy with it. They've been happy that they're no longer having to worry about that, with their own staff or hiring seasonal personnel at during tax season and stuff too. So I think I am good. I think this is going to be very good for the village all around and the residents. They've made it much easier, as Councilman Spitznagel said. People can drive right up to Brecksville if need be. And I'm sure all of our residents would still be able to call the village hall and get answers or get turned to the right direction.
I'll double check this because I don't want to be quoted on it, but if I'm not mistaken, having seen Rita come and sit, it used to be just with people who were delinquent, but having seen them sit at Seven Hills where I live to say, hey, you didn't file yet, you want to come in and file. I would think we can also have them on site here, if we needed to do that for our residents as a service. I'll double check that with Matt and Dawn. Could we get a rep out here for the day? And, post that and let the residents know if you want to file and you don't feel like driving or you don't drive at all, or you don't want to mail things in because you're unsure yet, sit down with one of the Rita reps on site. So I'll see if that's still a possibility as well.
The nice point I thought, which was important, was that somebody here will designate somebody, which would probably be the fiscal officer, or if we have somebody, as a part-time tax administrator, whatever, who we designate has the same access that Rita does. And, that's kind of even a good thing for our auditing and stuff, just talking to, how Matt, now we got another set of eyes looking at things too. So in other words, we're looking at it and they're looking at it. They're kind of, so that part I thought was nice, that we still have somebody here like Angela or whatever, or the fiscal officer, whoever, that has that access to look at what they're looking at. It isn't like, kind of like what somebody said earlier, like we're just, you, Angela, we're just handing it off to them and saying, take it, that we still have our eyes on too, and some control.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would also be willing to vote on an emergency basis for this tonight, knowing that Rita is anxious to start pulling information in preparation for the beginning of the year. And I know they do feel that the timeline is important. However, if anybody else wants to wait until next week, I'm fine with that too, but I don't see a reason really to delay it unless somebody else needs more time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Niels.
I had dealt with Rita for many years, having my own business. Fortunately, I had a tax lawyer, and Angela knows him, to help us through a lot of it. And sometimes it could be very complicated. After their presentation last week and showing that it is so much more user-friendly than it was, I'm really, I was very impressed by it. Dealing year after year in business, and the business I was in was dealing with so much money. It was, sometimes Rita was could be a problem. But after that, last week, and what he's had to say to us last week, and after what Mary and Angela, Brian, what you all have said, also looking at the surrounding communities here, Independence, Valley View, Maple Heights, Oakwood, every city and every village around us is back in with Rita. And they gave us the list of new cities that have just come back in. And these cities have been back with Rita for more than just a couple of years. I was, I wanted to see if they were local, like Valley View maybe had just jumped back in, or Independence, Seven Hills. No, they've been back with them. So I would be willing to go forward with this. And it sounds like everybody here is pretty much on the same page, so.
Hey, Prolograph?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mr. Whedon.
I had a couple of questions and comments. Yeah, I also was very appreciative of the presentation last week from Rita, representative. They answered all of our questions very well. And my, so I'm good. I think I'm good with the actual Rita package and what they can present, what they can do. My question is more so along the lines of getting a true comprehensive look at what our finance department looks like going forward. We know there's a new fiscal officer that will be have to be coming. Rita, I was essentially kind of like your tax administrator kind of role. What are the other skill sets or competencies that we will need to be factored into the finance department? And then the other part of that is, because in section 3 of the actual resolution, there's some titles that are in there. I don't know if these are actual titles that need to be in there, or just kind of his legacy titles. One's talking about the finance director, and then the other talks about assistant finance director. So I just want to kind of get a comprehensive look without necessarily dollars, what the finance department looks like with Rita assuming this tax administrator role.
Yeah, and I'll answer that. I know me and Councilman Whedon had a discussion about this because we were just talking about, the transition and Rita itself, and Ray asked me, and how me and Angela talking is we know we like to get a fiscal officer. We need a fiscal officer in the same role Angela's in. And then we did put in, we haven't put it out there yet, but you approved an assistant, okay? An assistant to the fiscal officer. And that's where I see that. Now, I did talk, if Angela were to stay on a little bit to help us with the transition, I think that would be great. See what we do get in that role. And I think the most I would see, if we did need to keep, if we did need to have somebody in a tax administrator role as we move forward. But I don't want to have a lot of employees either. I want to keep it lean, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
you want my
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So your fiscal officer may or may not come in with any tax experience, right? Depending on where they're coming from. Could be from another city, could be that it's someone who never did municipal before, just depending on, what we get. Or may not have done collections. When we say assistant, what we budgeted for currently was not an assistant finance director per se, although that role exists in 260. That's something we could look at when the new person gets in place. In my mind, it was going to be the old position I started at, which is accountant/tax auditor. So in a perfect world, hopefully that person's going to have some tax experience. So I think interviewing me coming in, Vic and Katie were like, okay, she's got tax experience on her resume, so this could go even better than we thought, because tax auditor could be doing just what Mary's doing right now and just inputting some things data entry-wise, not necessarily with a full tax background. Where I actually had a full tax background and Vic knew he wanted to retire, and that was a perfect path. So depending on what you get out of the fiscal officer you hire and then what they end up getting out of the assistant, that's kind of why I'm willing to stay here and let's linger around. Not that I have to be here forever, but if you get two people that really say we know nothing about taxes, then I'm willing to help you out as long as I can, because obviously I know your clients, I know our businesses, I know our residents, I know what goes on behind the scenes with our tax structure. So that would be your, if worst case scenario, I'm on a super duper part-time basis as your tax administrator, to just keep up on what's going on with Rita and then possibly train that assistant, or if the fiscal officer wants, what I'm saying? Yeah, we don't want to overload your fiscal officer. Like, that would be my main thing, right? Like, let's not overload them right out of the gates, because they have other things they're going to be focusing on and should be focusing on. But I'm also a believer that anybody who's in any position should know what everybody underneath them does, right? That's just how I operate as a leader. So just going to want to school them on, hey, we're with Rita. We used to collect our own taxes. This is what it looked like. This is what it's going to look like. And then maybe this is what you and or your assistant's job would be. So we can morph into all of that. I mean, and then great, if we get somebody out of the gates in both or either role that has some tax background, then I can even slip out of the scene sooner and just, be a phone call away if somebody needs something. But I won't leave you guys hanging. I won't say, hey, you're at Rita now, see you, and you got a fiscal officer, bye. That's not my plan, because I'm fortunate enough to have that extra time built in that I have a day off at the other job. I'm still accessible to you. I mean, and in the evenings too. I mean, I'm still accessible to be here, or if residents do call in, it's tax season, we're just getting the FO up and running, we barely have an assistant in place, they can still put a phone call in or email me and I'll give them a call back about tax stuff for sure, and smooth it over for your residents as they transition as well.
So it kind of, to me, it kind of sounds like, Angela, what you're saying is that in this office, in the finance department, one of the employees should have some tax.
Hopefully.
Okay, so whether that's the accountant, auditor, or
The fiscal officer.
the fiscal officer, so when we put our bids out, are we specifically asking for those skill
Yes,
sets?
we are, yes. I'm just finishing tweaking up that job description because things obviously have changed over the years and I wanted to look at some others. I'm gonna send it to the mayor to look over and we're gonna get that out this week. But yes, I will put that in there. I'm assuming that somebody might be at least somewhat familiar with municipal taxes, because even if you haven't collected them, you filed your own per se, unless you live in a township and you're in a bubble your whole life. Most of us have filed our own taxes, so we know a little bit about how that works and that money coming into cities in general, right? So even if I'm not actually doing the collections or entering a return, I'm not an enrolled agent and I haven't messed with anything IRS-wise or otherwise, I still know the back end of, taxes being a big portion of cash flow to a city. So, yeah, I would be shocked if one, if not both of them, didn't have some kind of tax background. And you got a little more leeway on the assistant, if you want to make sure you nail that down and say, what do you know about taxes?
We're just concerned, we don't
But yeah.
want to narrow the job. We don't want to narrow our applicants. We don't want to, we might have somebody that's a very good fiscal officer, and if they don't have that tax background, I don't think it would be a good move if we didn't talk to them.
Right, we don't have
Or,
counsel.
or, you know, we don't, finding somebody to fit in this role is probably not gonna be easy, and what we don't wanna do is narrow it down to, you know, that's kind of what Lori's been kind of helping us with, just because the environment is so different, and, you know, you might get somebody that's very good at being a fiscal officer and just was never in that role, but like Angela said, that doesn't mean they don't have an understanding of it,
Right.
and then in a few years, they're ready to go, or they, decide to. I mean, we've seen it in this office.
Yes.
We've had, you know, fiscal officers that were very seasoned, we have fiscal officers that weren't, and they turned out to be great fiscal officers. You know,
Katie will fully admit she was not the tax person. She could put in a very basic return for me. She could put in withholding payments and stuff, but like when Vic left, it was, you know, okay, are you left for lunch? Are you coming back? So needs their taxes done. So just that wasn't her wheelhouse. She would do her best and try and put in a basic return if need be, but otherwise she was leaving that part to me, which, I mean, taxes are my baby. That's kind of where I started out in the whole world of finance was taxes, but yes. So, I mean, yeah, so, yeah, I won't leave you guys high and dry. If we can get this person in place first and foremost and let them focus on some of the main things they need to, because we'll be working on budget and things like that, so I'll work hand in hand with them on the budget. Then that way, you know, we can get your people, and like, my big thing is to help you guys get staffed to the level you need, and by taking that step out of my position now, I feel like that's where I can do that, right? So instead of me drowning and flailing, and oh my God, I still don't have time to hire an assistant, I think me being able to take that step back, but still have time to be here with you, is how I can get you guys to the staffing level you need, and you know, to the coverage you need.
yeah, we don't wanna overwhelm a new fiscal officer either.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Ray, I do agree with you, when the time comes, we wanna have the right people in place, and not.
We're gonna wanna bring payroll back in-house anyway. I mean, I tried a couple times, but Katie and I just didn't line up on schedules and timing whenever I had time, and, you know, so you're gonna wanna bring payroll back in-house. So that's another piece the fiscal officer's gonna have that I didn't really have on my plate right now. You know, dealing with the pensions and the payrolls. Oh, sorry, I'm so far away.
And like Katie's
so-
role has helped us,
Yes,
you
it's
know,
been a
and
tremendous help.
especially through this, and we're grateful for that, you know, so.
So, yeah, and down the road, you may need even more employees as the corner grows. There may be a third person in finance, and then maybe that person's gonna be your tax specialist, but they do other duties as assigned beyond the tax stuff, and they would be your Rita backup person to keep, because again, as they mentioned, with that Ohio municipal net profit system, that's what's gonna be, we get 1 or 2 distributions a month from that, but the whole crux of that nightmare system is, okay, they're sending me money. It goes to this many clients. Oh, wait, whoops, now we got to pull money back because we sent you money for client ABC that we shouldn't have. So on your next distribution, even though we're really paying you for all these clients, you somehow have to go back in and deduct for that other client. And so that mess is still going to stay here. So that's going to probably be something I'm going to handle anyway, unless we get someone super seasoned with taxes, because I would never pawn that on anybody, not even my worst enemy. So there's going to be little pieces of tax that need to stay behind, obviously, like we said, and we're going to want to check up on Rita. And, you know, just keep tabs. So until we get people in here and they get acclimated and can go tour our industrial park and get familiar with our businesses, you know, I'll still be your point person for that. I'm not trying not trying to hang on the rest of my life, but I'm happy to help.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Let me finish. So-
Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So I still want to get some clarity on section
Yeah.
3, about those titles that are specifically called out there.
Yeah, John, this was legislation that came to us from Rita. So, I mean, we can pull out any title. I think it's just any representative of the finance department, if it wouldn't be the fiscal officer, would be
Yeah, I don't think
authorized
I don't
to.
think it matters, but go ahead, John, make it.
I was going to suggest that we do amend it to, instead of finance director, which is section 3 to be, we'll read like this: the fiscal officer is hereby appointed as the village's representative to the regional council of governments, and any assistant designated by the finance director. So I don't want to label it assistant finance, fiscal.
Right.
Designated by the fiscal officer.
Yeah, exactly. That way, whatever title we decide to give
That's a good idea.
Decide to give to the new person that, whether it be tax administrator or assistant fiscal officer or whatever, it could even be an office manager or whatever. I don't know what the title's going to be, but whatever it might be,
They mentioned me, but in this role,
Right,
me and Angela, I would never, I don't think the mayor should be that person.
Oh, no, yeah.
They mentioned it, but I wouldn't agree, I don't think
Well-
they should. It's just, it would be,
No. Not a good idea.
not a good idea.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
maybe we could talk about our in-house stuff. I mean, we're kind of getting off track of our Rita. You know,
Yeah.
We have a couple people want to
Yeah.
have them go to another meeting and,
I hear you. I suggest we do make that motion, just to clarify that it could be an assistant designated by the fiscal officer, so we leave it open. And there was one other
well, we can make
change.
that amendment
Yeah,
before
we
the
have another-
passage of.
Yeah, we'll just make it real fast.
Yeah.
If everybody's okay with it, that is.
Yeah.
And then there was one other typo in section 5 that I, just, the emergency reason, I copied it by secretary, I did it like a Friday, so I should have read it better, my bad. To timely submit documents necessary to facilitate the grant would be exchanged with,
I don't think we need anything. in
for the
there.
reason stated above, which is in section 1, we state to facilitate.
Well, write it out, and
Yes.
so we'll write those three things out, so whoever would make that amendment would have it.
Yes, will do.
Don't you think it'd be best for
Yes.
one person to make that amendment? Make-
Amendments, yeah.
Other than that, I agree with everything you guys are saying. Or we can delete it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I just wanted to say in regards to an assistant officer, we have been waiting. You know, we were going to be getting a second assistant officer. But veering off slightly about payroll also, I know that just in conversations with Nancy, our clerk of courts, said that she would be willing to help out at any time in any of those roles if it was necessary and stuff. But she said she was more than willing to, which I appreciate, because I do believe, like Angela has stated, everybody should know everybody else's job so they can jump in when necessary.
They should, but to a degree.
Right.
Where it comes to expertise. And Nancy and Lisa have been fantastic about offering to help with lots of things. They really have, and I've given them, more so even Lisa, what I can, when I can. So yes, I'm appreciative of that as well. But when it does come to personnel and payroll and things like that, I think that should stay in-house with your finance department for sure.
but yeah, there's no
Okay.
problem with that. Everybody wears, we ask
Well, we're
them
trying to get
wear
away
that.
from everybody wearing 50 hats here. You're
Yeah.
burning everybody out. That's what we're doing.
No,
Mr. Mayor?
but I think what, because I was pushing Angela for that role, and then when, she mentioned that, she's accepting that part-time job and stuff, then that's when we talked a little bit about, should we go with the assistant, get someone in, and then as we all discussed, I think we all kind of came to the conclusion, we get a fiscal officer, let that person be part of that interview process with their assistant, because that's, I think, important. A lot of us have been in that position where it's nice to pick the person that, is gonna work close with you. Because you need to have a relationship there that works. Not that we might do a good job picking that, but I know everybody likes to be, they'd like to probably, it would be good for them to be part of that hiring process, I think, for that position. But go ahead. Anybody else have anything?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just
Yes,
wanted to
Jennifer.
know if everybody was okay on voting on this tonight.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to introduce this.
Well, we gotta get the amendments straight, and then you can introduce
Yeah.
it. You can, you mean if everybody's okay, yeah, that's fine.
We're all in agreement?
Let's why don't we do this? Why don't we get the amendments right now, straightened out in the committee of the whole, and then when we go to the special council meeting?
Just go right through.
So then, would you make the amendments then too, Mr. Nielsen?
Yeah.
Or would we, it doesn't really matter. Does anybody else want to make them, or Mr. Nielsen would make them along with the legislation?
I could make the amendments.
Okay,
That's fine.
all right. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we continue, and then between it, John, if you want to work on that right
Type
now?
it up, John?
Yeah, why don't you type it up, and we'll continue. Yep. Because we'll get through other business in the committee of the whole, we'll adjourn the meeting, and then they should be done with that, we should be able to go, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move on, that was item 5, legislation, that was the resolution 2022-25 for Regional Income Tax Agency. Appreciate the discussion we had and appreciate everybody really taking a hard look at it the last week, as Jennifer stated, and last week with the presentation. So, and being here as Jennifer stated, it's a good thing. Other business, I know I think I might have mentioned to you that we might have had some legislation, and that was due to Smith and Obie. As we've talked about, Smith and Obie does have a new owner, a partner, and that development agreement needs to change due to, they want their name on it, they do want an extension. So that development agreement has been written up. Bricker and Eckler did rewrite it, and it's being reviewed by Smith and Obie's attorneys right now. We thought that might be ready. In fact, Tom called me and said, should I come to the meeting? I says, no, we don't have it on there for legislation at this time. We're not ready. But that was really the only thing I had under other business. Rob had some discussion. The architect called Rob, gave him some prints for the planning commission that weren't complete, and that's because he was worried about, we go every other month, and he wanted to make sure they could get on the meeting next month. But Rob let him know that the planning commission is here to work with businesses, and if they were to have an extra meeting, I know, Ray, sometimes it's hard, but you've been great with, and myself and the rest of the committee fitting it in. So with that said, then he understood, and he's getting a good complete set of plans, which the planning commission would need. You've probably seen them up there. They were taking some soil samples and stuff. So they're eager to move forward. I just wanted to let you know on that. So that could even be possible. We could maybe have a special council meeting on that too. We'll see. And it's just a matter of really just changing. And the big thing, which we've talked about a little bit, is an extension. Just because of that transition, they want an extension to get the project complete. But they've spent some money, so it's not a matter of whether they're doing the project. So that's really the only thing I have. If anybody else has anything under other business, otherwise we can ask for a motion for adjournment and then go into our special council meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In regards to Smith and Obie, I think it's absolutely reasonable that they would like to ask for an extension. A new partner coming in wants to have their input on the building and the plan, and I think that's reasonable also. So if that legislation comes up, even at a special council meeting after our first COW, I do not have an issue with that, so they could get moving with their project.
Mayor Colgraf?
Yes.
Just on the surface, other than the extension of time, any other significant changes to the agreement?
I haven't seen the total agreement yet, but according to the Tom, no, he felt might even be a little better agreement. So with Bricker too, but we definitely will look at it. If we're not comfortable, we can always go to another meeting. We're in a good spot because we're starting right in the beginning of October, and it's in their court. That's what Tom wanted me to share with everybody here, that it's in their court. They were really bugging us to get that development agreement together, which was encouraging, and we got it together, and now they're tweaking. I don't know if they're going to tweak it, but they're looking at it. So, which was good. But we're not holding them up. So, no, Ray, no, the big thing was their name on the documents and the time frame. That was the
Mr.
big
Mayor?
deal. Yes.
Two things I have. I don't know if you saw, I emailed the committee this morning, the mayor, about, I did get the packet, the information packet that we have to provide to the state for the remodel, reconstruction of the T.G. Young Park areas down there that we got the grant for. I reviewed that today, and it seems that the engineers can provide a lot of that information that's requested or that's required on there. They request things like maps and drawings to scale as to what we're doing and things like that. And they're used to doing the grant stuff, fulfill and all that stuff. So I'm sure they have most of that information at their fingertips anyway. So I did email Joe Gelati. There is a timeline that's put on there, so I can foresee us having, the rec committee having at least one more meeting on that to discuss a timeline, talk to Rob, see if we can get some estimates and things like that from companies and whether they'd be available in the spring to do it, so we can come up with a good timeline on that. Second thing, real quick, I'm sitting closer to Mr. Whedon here, not because he wants me to, but out of necessity. There's a garbage can right here, and our mayor was mopping the floor today because right above me, there's a drip. This ceiling is starting to look like mushrooms are growing. We need to come up with a plan to redo this roof before it leaks into infrastructure of the building and costs us more money. Because we've got cables, we've got wires, we've got all kinds of stuff, thank you, running through this building. And it's starting to leak not only here, but in other places in this room, and I'm sure in other places in the building, so we need to work on that.
Along with that, I just checked, and if there are the residents that are watching, there seems to be a white spot to the left of the table from the residents' view. That is the
Oh, on the floor,
discoloration
yeah.
on the floor.
Yeah,
From sitting in water in the wax.
Yeah, that's the wax they'll have to.
So, that there has been a good amount of damage already.
Yeah, so that, it's gonna cost a lot of money to get done. It's gonna cost a lot more money if we keep waiting.
Yeah.
We beat this horse long enough, and I think it's time.
And maybe we'll see maybe we'll be able to apply for a grant too and stuff.
Yes.
We'll see, so maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in the next meeting. Our next,
if I may quickly add, since I wasn't in here for other business, Joe Gelati and I are meeting at 9 o'clock on Friday. He updated the 5-year plan, and we will have that discussion about money and where everything's coming from for projects. I know had asked all of you about new money and Barclay and things for that, for the note. So I will have an update for all of you after Bill and I meet.
and Ray, you have a meeting in October, don't you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, I think it's Tuesday, that's the wrong month. I think- Yeah, it would be the first Tuesday next.
November
October
1st.
4th.
November 1st?
October 4th.
October 4th is the economic development.
Now we
Yes.
switched,
You switched those two?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
you did
looking at the
switch.
calendar, on the calendar, it's,
I think you did switch those
Yeah.
Some of them, yes. some
October
of them
4th.
switched.
so what, I have to get hold of
for
the,
next week. Okay.
right, get a hold of Mr. Gelati and get a
Right.
agenda together. And
Yep.
then it's,
Did you want to come here when we meet at 9 o'clock Friday? Are you available? Check the calendar, let me know.
I'm not.
You're not? Okay, all right. So I'll give you a little recap of that, and that way if you have time to meet with him again.
I may try to call in.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
It's a birthday, I had some other plans, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, yeah.
but I'll call.
Okay.
I'll call and I'll touch base with you guys.
Real quick, because I know we want to get into this special council meeting, but with that said, Brian, I know me and you talked, and you sent the email, talked about that. Me and Joe talked about it. He was recapping me about the drop project, and he said he's gonna start putting that together
Oh, good, thank you.
for you. So he did receive that, and he's gonna let, this,
Thank you.
I told him we had a meeting, he said, we'll let council know that he's gonna start putting that together. That is in their wheelhouse, that would be something, because I was saying, would that be something we would do, or you guys would do? He said, no, that would be something we would do. I've done similar ones for other, communities related to that application.
Excellent, thank you.
So, okay. Well, anybody else have anything for other business? For the committee of the whole? Can I ask for adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for a motion, make a motion for adjournment for the committee of the whole.
Second.
Second vote on the motion.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Okay. Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, September 27, 2022, adjourned at 6:51 PM. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll go into our special council meeting. We'll start that, and then we'll get it worked out, the legislation here and what we talked about. Okay. Like to welcome everybody to the special council meeting of Tuesday, September 27th at September 27th of 2022 at 6:51 PM.
Councilman Nielsen?
Here.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Here.
Councilwoman Allen?
Here.
Councilman Whedon?
Here.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Here.
All of council present, along with our fiscal officer, Angela Reve, and our law director, John Montello. Want to welcome any residents that are live streaming, or any non-residents. We just adjourned our COW meeting, and we talked about this piece of legislation that's on tonight. We did talk about it last week, and have been communicating back and forth, and we have talked about it in years past, just not as in-depth as we have in the last couple meetings. So at this time, we are going to have a piece of legislation, Resolution 2022-25, Regional Income Tax Agency. Now, at this time, I know we discussed in the COW meeting a couple amendments. Who would like to make those amendments? Jennifer, you're going to make those amendments?
Yes.
And you have
Yes.
your thing, and then Mr. Nielsen, you would, and those amendments would be for suspension too, does she have to list that for suspension, or just make the amendments, and then Mr. Nielsen introduces it for suspension, correct?
As amended.
As amended, okay, so the amendments go first, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are on item 3, legislation. Is there any amendments to that piece of legislation?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make two amendments to the legislation resolution number 2022-25. First amendment would be section 3 to read, "The fiscal officer is hereby appointed as the village's representative to the Regional Council of Governments, and any assistant designated by the fiscal officer is hereby designated as an alternate as required pursuant to section 3 of the agreement." I'd like to also make do we have to do the amendment separately?
No, do them together.
Okay, and I would also like to make an amendment to section 5 for it to read that this resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety in the village of Walton Hills, Ohio, for the reasons stated above. Wherefore, this resolution shall take effect and be in force upon receiving the affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members elected to council, otherwise from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Second.
Vote on the amendments.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Okay, amendments pass 5-0. Who'd like to introduce this piece of legislation?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to introduce resolution number 2022-25 for suspension. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Regional Income Tax Agency to participate in the Regional Council of Governments for the purpose of administration and collection of municipal income tax in the village of Walton Hills, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Wait, doesn't
With
he have to include the
As
amendment?
as amended.
With the amendments.
Second.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 2022-25 with amendments passed 5-0.
Nope, we gotta do adoption.
Oh, adoption. I'm ahead of the game. I'm helping you, Ray, Jennifer.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, for adoption with the amendments. Make
Mr.
sure you say
Mayor,
that.
I would like to ask for adoption with the amendments for resolution number 2022-25, a a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Regional Income Tax Agency to participate in the Regional Council of Governments for the purpose of administration and collections of municipal income tax in the village of Walton Hills, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Vote on the resolution.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 2022-25 with the amendments passed 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, before I make a motion for adjournment, I would just again like to thank everybody for us having this meeting tonight. I do appreciate the extra time to go through all the material. And with that, I'd like to make an adjournment of the special council meeting for Tuesday, September 27th.
Second.
There's a second. Vote on the motion.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed to adjourn the meeting at 6:57 PM. Thank you, everybody. Now the big process begins, huh?